Welcome to the Sequencing Circles tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to learn how to sequence circles. So to do that we got to get some circles on the screen. So I'm going to click on the Tools menu and select Layout, and in the Layout dialog box we want to change number of CCRs to 4 because I'm going to do 4 circles. Light type is still CCRs. Ribbon orientation horizontal works best. Ribbon shape is circle. Ribbon length is full. Location of ribbon controllers does not matter. So here we have our 4 circles, and if we click on these pixels in the sequencing rows, we'll see that the first pixel is over here on the left edge of the circle, and if we keep selecting, you can see the pixels just keep going around the circle so that the last pixel is right there. And so that means that the wires from your controller are going to come right here on your circle, and that's the start of the CCR, and it's going to go around like that. And you're going to do that the same way for all 4 of the circles. They're all the same way. The second row from the bottom is the second circle. The third row from the bottom is the third circle, and the fourth row from the bottom is the fourth circle. And I've had some people tell me that's the opposite of what they expected, that they figured these rows should be ordered just the opposite. And there are reasons why I have it ordered the way it is. One reason is that I want the sequences to play back the same whether these sequencing rows are oriented vertically or horizontally. And the other thing is I want a fixed layout so that everybody's sequences get played back the same on everybody's computer. If I let some people reverse the order of these, then the sequences wouldn't all be the same, and when I sold my sequences, then the sequences you get from me, they wouldn't play back the same on everybody's CCRs. So that's why I'd like everybody to set their CCRs up the same way here. So that's enough about the layout to press on about sequencing these things. The morphs are the most interesting thing to do on the circles. I've brought up the morph dialog box. The default time length on the tail is 1 second. I'm going to reduce that to a ½ second for the purpose of this tutorial. Click on Add, and we've got the default morph up here, and he goes from the start of all 4 sequencing rows to the end of all 4 sequencing rows. If we play him, we'll see that that's just 1 revolution around each one of the circles. And I'm going to change the play speed to 1/2 so that we can see things better, and I'm going to shorten the length of this effect to be a ½ second so that I can fit more effects on the screen here, because my screen resolution is low here because that's because of YouTube videos. They just have a lower resolution, so I've got to scrunch everything down. Anyway, if we play him, it's going to do the same thing. And if we wanted to do one revolution around 1 circle, we would just change the morph to go from the start of this sequencing row to the end of that sequencing row. Click on Modify in the Morph Setup dialog box. And if we play that, then we get 1 circle around, or 1 revolution around the first circle. And if I want 2 revolutions, I just copy paste, we play that, and we get 1, 2 revolutions. And if I wanted 4, I could just copy paste that, and then we get 4 revolutions. Now that was easy to do, and that's pretty cool, but what most people want to do is the weaving pattern, I call it, where you start here and you weave up and down through the circles. It'd be nice if you could do that with 1 morph, but you can't. You got to split it into 4 separate morphs, and the first one is going to go from here to here. which means we go from the start of the first row to the middle of the first row. I click on modify, and the second portion of the weave, remember this is the first one, we go from there to there. The second one goes from here to here. Now remember, each one of these circles starts at this edge, goes around, and ends back where it started. And that means if we want to go from here to here, we've got to start at the end and go to the middle. So on the second sequencing row, I'm going to mark the start at the end there and go back to the middle. We click on modify, and now for the third segment, this is the first, second, third segment is right here. We start at the beginning and go to the middle. So on the third row from the bottom, we start at the beginning and end in the middle. Click on modify. And for the fourth segment, it's going to go from here to here, and again that means we go from the end back to the middle. So on the fourth row, we start at the end and go back to the middle. Modify. Now if I did that right, let's play this and we should get our weave pattern. Okay, good. We did that. Now the next thing that's cool is to start a weave going the opposite direction with a different color, and then when they meet, they mix. So I'm going to select all four of these, copy, and scroll over and paste that, and I want to change their color. We can double click on this and that changes all the controls. That's a little trick to know. Instead of clicking individually on these, you can just double click here and it changes the first three colors, and it leaves the last one black because that's normally what you want to do. So I just change that to green. I say group modify, OK, and all four of the morphs change to green, and it's still the same pattern, of course, from left to right. So now to change the pattern, we can use a new group modify feature that is in 3.9 and later versions of the software, and that version actually hasn't come out yet at the time of the recording of this tutorial, but it'll come out around Thanksgiving time of 2012. So anyway, this new feature is that we can click on group modify and say move endpoints, and click on the reverse direction box there and say OK. And now what that has done is changed the direction of each one of these morphs. Remember, this first one used to go from here to here. Well, now it goes from there to there. So if we play this, it'd be nice if it reversed the direction of our weave, but it doesn't. It just it does that. It reversed the direction of each individual morph, but to change the direction of the weave, we have to also reverse the order of the morphs. So that means this last guy is now first, and this guy has to be second. Cut him, paste. This guy has to be third, paste, and this guy has to be fourth, paste. So let's select all these guys and get the screen back here and use nudge to scoot them over. And now if we play these, now we have the weave going the reverse direction. So we can cut that and go back to the beginning and paste, and now we have them on top of each other, and so if we play them, they will go at the same time. And sure enough, they mix and form yellow and different shades of orange, and that's what we get. Let's play it again. That's pretty cool. Okay, so that's a really cool effect, but I'm the first one to admit that it's sort of difficult. You have to do some mental gymnastics in your mind to imagine where all these little half segments need to go. There is an easier way. On every download there is a sample visualization file with the circles mapped to the sequencing grid in a different way. To access that, you just click on File, Open, and like I said, this is on everybody's computer. It's a sample file. The default directory is the Superstar Sequences directory when you want to open up in a sequence, and there is a samples directory off of there. We double click on samples and look for the file viz circles 4. We open that and ask us if we want to save that. Sure. And now it has opened up this viz circles 4 sequence, and it uses a visualization file. And to get it so we can see the whole thing, I'm going to click on view, and if we do that, it remaps it to fit the screen. And so now we see all 4 circles, and it has mapped them to 2 sequencing rows, and each sequencing row is 100 pixels long. And these green lines are where it had found rows of fixtures, and in this visualization file that I created, I have the circles split up into a top half and a bottom half, and so it has put the bottom half of all the circles on the bottom sequencing row and the top half of all the circles on the top sequencing row. If we click on here, you can see that that's the bottom half of the circle, and if you keep going, it's still the bottom half of that circle, and if you select the whole thing, that's the bottom half of all the circles. And so conceptually what I've done is taken the bottom half of the circles and just scrunched it down into a straight line, and same thing with the top half. So what does that mean when you sequence? It actually means that doing a circle around one of the CCRs is more difficult. If we scroll to the right here, you can see there are some effects in this sample file. I'm going to select this first one and scoot him over because I only want to play him for right now. And if we play him, what you get is just a morph going from left to right, bouncing along the circles. That was very different than the morph we had in the other mode, where that caused a circle to go around each CCR. And it means that if we want to do a revolution around one circle, you have to do it in 2 halves. You have to go around the top half, and then you have to come around the bottom half. So you see, conceptually, these little grids are the first circle, and the circle has been squashed down to be 2 flat lines. And so if you want, this shows 4 circles, and it required 8 morphs to do that. So this layout makes doing one circle around one CCR more difficult, but it makes the weave pattern much easier conceptually. If we play this, that is our weave pattern, and it still took 4 morphs to do it, but the first morph was the top half of the circle. Here's the bottom half of the circle, top half of the circle, bottom half of the circle. So you see, we just weaved up and down, and that was much easier to conceptualize. So let's play the rest of this sample file. And then it comes down, and then it does those 2 like that. And here's what we did in the previous example. We do from the left, we do it from the right, then it does them together, and they mix. So that's I think it's much easier to do. And if you're going to sequence circles, I would encourage you to use this visualization. If you wanted to use the visualization without using this sample sequence file, you just go File, Import Visualization, and however, if you do it this way, you have to remember that you change the max length to 100. It's already set to 100 because the sample file set it to that for us. But change the max length to 100. Click on OK, and in the default directory for visualizations is the visualizations editor directory. Go down to the samples directory and look for circles 4.lee, and that will import. We didn't see anything change because that was already the visualization file that we had. That will import that file, and you will get this screen without any of the effects up there. And so I would encourage you to use that for your sequences. And if you're curious, I have the if I minimize this, I have the visualizer open here, and to look at that file you just say File, Open, and he was already in the samples directory, but on your computer it'll come up in the visualizations editor directory, and you will have to double click on samples, and in there look for the circles 4.lee file. Open that, and here you can see the visualization. There are two props. This prop is the top half of the circles, and this prop is the bottom half of the circles, and in each prop there are 4 fixtures, and you can see each circle has been split into 2 halves so that they can be put into 2 different props. Now realize that all I have done by doing this is changed the way the pixels on the CCRs get mapped to the sequencing row in Superstar. I did not change the way you set up the CCRs on your actual layout. You do not have to cut your CCRs in half. You still start them here, make a complete revolution, and end them here, and you do that the same for every CCR. I can't emphasize that enough. Don't think that this means you have to chop your CCR in half. I just chopped the visualization in half so that it would map to the sequencing rows differently. And also realize that when you use a visualization, Superstar gets the unit ID information from the visualization. If we double click on this fixture, we'll see that it says he's on the regular network with a unit ID of 01. You could go change that to whatever unit ID you're using, and then Superstar will use that. You could change it to 4. Now if you did that, remember that that just changes the top half. Now we have to select the bottom half of the fixture. You see, I've told him he starts at pixel 26 and goes from there, and we changed the top half to unit ID 4, so we need to change him to unit ID 4. And as soon as you do that and you save that file and then import it into Superstar, he will use unit ID 4 for this first circle. And you could go change the unit ID to any of these circles, to anything you want. When you're in those fixed CCR modes that we used at the first part of this tutorial, you have to you set the unit IDs differently. In Superstar, you set them in the configuration dialog box, but for a visualization file, it gets all the configuration information from the visualization file. So, and also, if you just have 2 circles, then you could go and delete 2 of the circles here and save the file to a different name and import that. So I think that's all I want to cover in this tutorial. That should give you a good start and make it a lot easier to sequence your circles. Thank you for listening, and have a super day.